Hey everybody, welcome back to the Franchise, the movie podcast where we run down movies in a franchise before the new franchise movie comes out.
You've got to come back with me.
Where?
Back to the
Franchise.
Allow us to introduce ourselves. Just like Rada the Hutt, my nickname as a kid was also a little stinky.
You know, my nickname was just my name. It's just Nick. Short for Nicholas. Yeah. It wasn't that creative.
I buried the lead a little bit because unfortunately Tanner couldn't join us this week, but I am joined by Nick. He wouldn't have made it as Obi-Wan's guest host, but he might just make it as mine. It's Nick Roffey.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much for being here, Nick. For those who don't know, Nick and I are old coworkers from our WatchMojo days.
Yeah, for like 3-4 years, I think.
Yeah, I worked there from 2018 to 23, either as a freelancer or onboard staff.
Yeah.
And we mostly worked together in the script editing phase, right? You were like the
Yeah, that's right.
supervisor.
Yeah, and you know, because I started off as a freelance writer as well, and then moved into editing. And yeah, I mean, you know, my favorite. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but my favorite script I ever did was actually like the complete timeline of Ahsoka.
Yeah.
To this day, yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Was that for the
I had a lot of fun
show?
with that one. Yeah, it was before the live action show came out. It was as preparation for that. Yeah, for people to catch up who hadn't watched any of the animated stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are no longer with WatchMojo, but one of the great things about having worked for them is that we met so many amazing people who are like-minded and just as nerdy as we are. And I knew when I was watching this podcast that I would want to reach out to a lot of these people and have them on. And since we started with Star Wars, I couldn't think of anyone better than you to be a guest on this show.
Thank you. Yeah, I love doing Star Wars projects. It was great.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us for this one.
Pleasure.
And I mean, we're talking about the Clone Wars today, the Clone Wars movie, that is. Tanner and I have been watching these movies as we go along. We don't have enough time to do a whole TV show, so we're just doing the movie.
Yeah, fair.
Unfortunately, it didn't work out for Tanner this week, but I am glad that you were available because you have a lot more extensive knowledge of the Star Wars universe than he does for sure, especially the shows.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I wouldn't call myself a walking Wikipedia, but I am a big fan for sure. Yeah, I love the movies, and I also am a huge fan of the animated shows as well. And you know, I think everything that Dave Filoni has created is kind of George Lucas's protege.
Mm-hmm. We'll get into Dave Filoni for sure and because this movie is actually pretty. I mean, at the time, it seemed pretty non-essential, but it's actually pretty influential as far as where the franchise goes from here.
I think that really sums it up. I remember when this movie came out, I can't even remember if I watched it when it came out. I think it was a while ago. I wasn't, you know, super into the animation style at the time. You know, the Clone Wars, the animated show as well, it's well known for how much the animation quality improved over time. And for the movie, you know, the style was kind of different and the animation was a lot rougher than it came to be. And look, I'll be honest, I think the story, it's not the most engaging and compelling in the Star Wars universe. But yeah, it turned out to become kind of integral to the franchise. And I think, you know, watching it now, when you go back and watch it, I think one of the things that makes it more enjoyable or more interesting than it was when it came out, because it was potentially kind of forgettable at the time, is just how beloved the animated series became and how many amazing characters the movie introduces.
Yeah, I'd also had that kind of retrospective, having watched it a second time nowadays, because I back when I was working for WatchMojo, I hadn't seen the shows, and then I ended up being one of like the super fans of Star Wars. So, and then as Disney was churning out this stuff, I kind of had to be more in the know. So I ended up watching the Clone Wars at that point, and you know, Rebels and all that stuff. So now I can kind of look back on it in a different lens. I don't know if it makes the movie better, but it does make you appreciate it more.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I read that the animation style, it was influenced by anime, but also by Thunderbirds, which is kind of, you know, it wasn't immediately, I don't know, it was different and it didn't immediately grab me, although over the course of the TV series, I came to love it. And again, they really kind of elevated it each season until, like, again, I know we're not, speaking too much about the TV series, but by the final season and what we're seeing come out now with all the tales, the animation is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I just watched the first 2 episodes of the Mall show. It looks so good.
Yeah, I can't wait. I haven't watched that yet. I can't wait.
Oh yeah, it's great. I don't want to get too far down a tangent, but the show has definitely given me more of an appreciation for Maul as a character. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, they really do a lot with Maul. Yeah, because the commentary for Phantom Menace was, oh man, that was such a cool villain. I can't believe that you just killed him off. And so it was interesting what they did for Clone Wars. Yeah, they brought him back and really developed his character into something that has had the longevity to not only go across other series like Rebels, other movies such as a Solo movie, very brief appearance, I know, and now into his own Solo series.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Maul is not in this movie, which might have made it better, but.
True.
But for many reasons, this movie is not really movie-like anyway, so we'll get into that. But anyway, to get into the episode proper, yes, we are talking about Star Wars: The Clone Wars movie from 2008. So if you want to queue it up on your own TV, don't click the one that says 2008-14 because that's 7 seasons of content.
Yeah, you'll be there for a while.
Yeah, so this movie was released in August of 2008, which is the first Star Wars movie not released in May, which I did not know until this episode.
I didn't know that either until I was kind of reading up to give myself a bit of a refresher earlier today, and I discovered that too.
Yeah, and it won't be the last, though, not to release in May. Nowadays, they're just Christmas.
Yep.
Anyway, so yeah, this was directed by Dave Filoni, written by Henry Gilroy, Stephen Melching, and Scott Murphy. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the movie itself, just anybody listening, this is your obligatory spoiler warning. I don't know how much we can spoil for this movie, but if you're worried about that, this is that thing right now.
Press pause, go watch the movie, and come back. But honestly, yeah, there's, if you've seen anything subsequent to it, there's not that much to spoil.
No, I mean, aside from the introduction of Ahsoka, like, there's not much to this at all. But before we get into this movie, we always talk at the top of the episode our relationship with the movie, but we also talked about in the beginning of our Star Wars rundown, we also talked about our relationship with the franchise as a whole. So, but since you're new on the show, Nick, I'd love to hear what your history and relationship with Star Wars in general.
Oh, wow. Where to even begin? I was talking to my sister recently, my younger sister, and we were talking about someone that we know in common. I can't even remember who it was, who doesn't like Star Wars. And she was so outraged. She's like, what? Star Wars practically raised me, which was pretty funny. And I kind of feel the same in a sense, in that it was just so formative to me growing up. I remember, man, the anticipation of the Phantom Menace, was it 1999 that it came out, or was it 2000? I remember being in high school and it was so crazy going from thinking that we would never get more Star Wars to knowing that George Lucas was working on more. Whether it lived up to the hype at the time, I think depends on your individual view, and also a lot about what age you were at the time as well, I think. But yeah, Star Wars practically raised me.
That's great.
Yeah.
I didn't really expect any other kind of an answer, really. I feel like this movie, it's like, what's that show where it's like the toys that raised us, the shows that raised us, the movies that raised us, and Star Wars is definitely up there.
Yeah, I mean, I was a huge fantasy fan as well, and Star Wars is, it's technically it's a sci-fi, space opera, space western, but with very, very strong fantasy elements. It's a great bridge between fantasy and science fiction. So it was right up my alley.
Yeah, same with me. You mentioned earlier that you weren't sure if you had seen this movie when it came out. Do you remember when you first saw it?
I think I came back to it after several years, possibly because I started becoming interested in the Clone Wars TV series, which I also missed the first seasons of, and ended up going back and watching it because I just wasn't that wasn't that interested. I didn't think it was going to be for me. I can't remember when exactly I went back and watched the movie. I think the hook though might have been that I was really interested in this character Ahsoka. She is possibly my favorite, or definitely one of my favorite Star Wars characters of all time. And so I think that's what kind of reeled me in. And her character is really interesting, but also I think what kept me there is her relationship with Anakin is really interesting. And what seemed like something, and I kind of not excessive, but unnecessary, her character, it really actually, the way they tell the story really actually deepens Anakin's development and arc and what happens to him between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and makes sense of it.
Yeah, we were talking about how in the last episode, last episode being Revenge of the Sith, we were talking about how when they ended up not going the route of having an opening montage to start the film, and that kind of prevents you from feeling this passage of time between 2 and 3. But the show does actually a pretty good job at filling in a lot of these holes, even with these really established characters with very firm places in the canon.
Yeah. And now, like, some of those characters, like, like Rex, Asajj Ventress, when of course Ahsoka, they're like central characters of the franchise,
Yeah. It's given us so much good Star Wars.
Yeah. I think there's a quote in the film where Yoda kind of explains why he sent Ahsoka to be Anakin's Padawan. And it's something along the lines of Anakin needing to learn to let go so that he's going to, train Ahsoka as his Padawan. And then as she moves up and becomes a Jedi, he's going to have to let her go and trust her to take care of herself. And that was kind of the lesson that Yoda wanted Anakin to learn so that he could learn to let things go and not hold on to things so tightly and try to control them. I can't remember my larger point, but I think that's kind of how Ahsoka fits into developing Anakin's backstory more and filling in, I think, kind of a gap into, okay, how does Anakin go from hero to villain?
Yeah, because I mean, in the movies, we get the sense that he's reckless. He's very skilled, but he's not quite experienced enough to be a Jedi on his own. So when Anakin's like, "Why am I not in the council? Like, why am I not a Jedi Master?" And the council's just like,
because you were a child, because you're out of control.
But again, like, you do get a lot more of that, like, characterization in the show. It does. So if you're feeling like, oh, well, I didn't really feel that, impression of him in the movies, it's also there. So the show does a really good job at filling in those holes.
Yeah, he's a bit of a loose cannon, a maverick, and you love him for it. But he doesn't play by the rules. He kind of he follows his own internal voice or heart, and yeah, he is reckless, just like Ahsoka, which is why they get along so well.
Grounds him a little bit.
Yeah.
While we're talking about Ahsoka being assigned to Anakin, I do have this note here. She was originally going to be written to be assigned to Obi-Wan in the show, but it was George Lucas that insisted that she go to Anakin.
Yeah, and I think that was such a wise story choice because Anakin had so much more character development to go through at that time. He needed to move from one place in his character to another, much more than I think Obi-Wan does at that part of the story. And Ahsoka helps him get there. Yeah, because I don't know really what arc it would follow, how it would develop Obi-Wan to have been Ahsoka's teacher, because Ahsoka's reckless and willful. Obi-Wan was already dealing with that, so it wasn't really new. So I think that was a really smart decision.
Yeah, I agree. I don't quite know if Obi-Wan's character arc has the runway to support that, or even need it, really.
Yeah, I agree.
So production on this show began in the mid-2000s while they're filming Revenge of the Sith, although the Clone Wars TV show did kind of already exist with a Genndy Tartakovsky version in 2003.
Yeah, the cartoon version. Guilty confession, I've actually never watched the cartoon version.
Really?
Yeah, no, I haven't. So I don't actually know much about it. I don't really know, like, did they reuse many plot elements or ideas from that in the new version?
I know General Grievous debuted on that show before Revenge of the Sith, for instance, but as a whole, it was a lot more anthological, and the episodes weren't as long either. So it was kind of like you can jump in anywhere to experience this little mini adventure kind of episode. So it wasn't quite the same as this version of Clone Wars. The physics is also way different. Like there's a very famous episode of Mace Windu taking on like literally like 5,000 droid troopers. His force powers is like Super Saiyan, like just like if he was really this powerful in like the movies, it would just destroy logic.
I guess that's interesting because when it comes to that style of animation, and then when you go to like 3D animation, you're getting slightly closer to reality. So I guess you have to tone down, like make the physics a little bit more realistic as you cross closer to live action.
Yeah, a little bit. So the original show, not canon, obviously, because it can't be. It's not possible. But it is an interesting watch if you're into Star Wars.
Yeah, I should go back and give it a watch.
So George Lucas is obviously, I mean, he's planning on being done with directing Star Wars pretty much after Revenge of the Sith, but is still looking toward the future, and he does establish Lucasfilm Animation in 2005 in the hopes of developing a TV show based on the Clone Wars, because he knew there's a lot of story to be told in the middle of these three movies that you can't cover on, in a film trilogy.
Yeah, and which led him, or maybe I'm jumping the gun again, but led him to reach out to Dave Filoni, I believe.
No, that's my very next bullet point, is that Dave Filoni gets hired as the showrunner.
Yeah, so Filoni was working on Avatar: The Last Airbender before that, I believe. He was a director and story artist or something like that. And I think. And
confirmed.
I think that the story goes that Filoni thought it was because he was like obsessed with Star Wars, so he thought it was a colleague pranking him or something. Is that right? When he got the call asking him to be part of the animated show.
I hadn't heard that, but I am doing the research right now, and I'm finding it as well.
Yeah. He thought it was a joke. He got a phone call. I don't know if it was from George Lucas himself or someone else, and he thought they were just making fun of him. Yeah, he couldn't believe it. So then he left Nickelodeon and came over to Lucasfilm Animation, I guess.
A decision that pretty much changes the course of his entire career.
And the franchise, yeah.
Yeah, eventually the franchise as a whole, because nowadays, let's see, Mandalorian comes out like right before Rise of Skywalker, but then everything else after that, it feels like you have this really big like Filoni imprint of the animated shows, like the Ahsoka show being so tied to Rebels, and a little bit Clone Wars. It feels more and more in the Disney Plus era that Filoni has a lot more of a creative stamp on the production of Star Wars.
Yeah, definitely. Lucas seemed to see him as his protege, and he's shaped kind of all the animated shows that fill in the gaps. But also now, he's very involved. He was very involved with the Mandalorian, right? And of course the Ahsoka series. And I think he's now president, right?
Yeah, he just. At January, I believe, of this year, when Kathleen Kennedy stepped down, he took over as president and chief creative officer of Lucasfilm.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So the future is Filoni.
Mm-hmm. 'Tis.
So this, before this was a movie, this show was a show. It wasn't going to be a movie. They produced 22 episodes, I guess, for their first season initially. And they pitched it to networks in late 2007. Interestingly, though, Fox, the studio that Star Wars was mostly affiliated with, straight up passes on this movie, or passes on this show.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What was their reasoning?
I guess the pitch didn't impress them, I guess,
Okay, yeah. And to be honest, it wasn't immediately obvious, I don't think, that fans would embrace the animation style, because it was so different from what we'd seen before and what was succeeding at the time, Don't get me wrong, I think it was a great idea to go for something so distinct. Ultimately, it really paid off. But, I remember I found it a little jarring at first when watching the movie. It wasn't what I expected, yeah. It wasn't what I was used to, maybe.
The fans definitely did not embrace it right away.
I think the general reception to the movie was negative, even from fans. I remember Ahsoka as a character, has a huge redemption arc in a sense, in that fans initially found her really annoying, which I didn't find her annoying because I was already, I don't know, because my journey, like about, finding out about her and then going back and watching the movie or whatever, I guess I knew that she was going somewhere because the TV series had already come out, even though I hadn't watched it yet. But I can understand why. I mean, first off, Anakin has had an apprentice. What? Between those two movies? Like all that happened? Like that's a pretty big deal, and it wasn't even mentioned or alluded to in the third movie. That's odd. So that's already kind of a lot to swallow. And then I think the fans didn't like that she was her attitude, basically, that she was kind of, she wasn't arrogant, but she was what's the word? She was
a little bit snippy.
Snippy. Sure, she was a bit snippy.
Snips.
And everyone was, who's this person giving Anakin who we love like a hard time or whatever. It took time for them to embrace her, and she eventually became like a huge fan favorite because, she that snippiness is actually, turns out it is part of her character development. It's part of a larger arc. Yeah.
I can see why, like, in the early stages of the show, for what we do get in, like, the first season or even this movie, why, the top brass, as it were, the producers would be a little bit. I mean, because I guess from Fox's standpoint, they were like, all right, well, I thought we were done with Star Wars. Like we've done the full circle. We did the prequels. Now it's all complete. Why are we going back to the well for this kind of like bargain bin, I guess?
Yeah.
Cartoon.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, and probably wasn't clear how much potential it had, how much story was there. I mean, I can't remember exactly how much time passes between the Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, but it just doesn't feel like there's that much left, that much unexplained that we needed to explore. Turns out there's a lot that happens in between because they created a lot. They made up a lot of story that is really interesting. But yeah.
It was a hard pitch at the time. And Cartoon Network even hesitated. Cartoon Network, having eventually aired the show, were also not really super sold on it. And it's not until that they promised to have a film release, which is the Clone Wars movie, that they get Warner Brothers on board and they get Cartoon Network to reconsider the whole offer to begin with.
I didn't know that. I knew the origin story of the movie as it's actually like 4 episodes or something that just got edited together because it was kind of, Lucas was like, this is great, we should do a movie. But I wonder if that also had a role in that decision or not. I don't know. To be honest, I do find like the movie feels like 4 episodes. They're all kind of pasted together. Yeah, exactly. Because, the first sequence where Ahsoka's introduced and there's like some sort of siege or something on, what is it, Christophsis or whatever? Anyway, it just feels like it's like a totally different kind of setup to what then happens with Jabba the Hutt's son. It just it doesn't really feel super connected.
No, and in fact, after they decide to make it into a movie, or at least to debut the show as a movie and stitch these episodes together, they take the episode which was called The New Padawan, which is that first like 20 minutes of the movie, and then you have this 3-part arc, which the show would be known for doing plenty of times, but this arc being the kidnapping of Rod of the Hutt and stuff.
Yeah, and that's what it feels like, actually. That 20-minute opening, it feels like a complete episode. There's a conflict and there's a resolution where they consolidate their relationships. It's a good setup.
Yeah, but it does feel weird watching it from like a movie perspective because I mean we intake media differently for different media. So to have like Anakin and Ahsoka's like reconciliation moment happen like 22 minutes in, and then you have the whole rest of the movie, it's a little bit jarring. I mean, that's something you would feel like would be at the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And that 3-episode arc with Rod of the Hutt, the first 20 minutes turns out that it doesn't introduce what is the central kind of conflict of the movie, which is the, Rod of the Hutt thing. So it feels weird to kind of, to pivot from, okay, you think this is about, and it is, including across that arc about the Anakin and Ahsoka, what their relationship is going to be like. But yeah, it feels like there is some resolution given the first 20 minutes and then suddenly pivots to a completely different conflict and crisis.
Yeah. Whereas a movie would probably, like, especially with, like, say, episode 3, have like a mini conflict, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes long, to introduce the characters and the plot, and then, move on to the actual plot of the movie. But this one, it feels since it's a full episode of a TV show, and not a cold open, I guess, as you would say. It does feel a little bit janky in that way.
Yeah, I agree.
But, they decided to Frankenstein this into a movie. So, it's not on anyone's fault from the writing team or the animators or whatever. It's just, it was a corporate decision, and it makes a weird product. But
And thank God we got the TV show after it. And thank God that they got the go ahead, and this project continued. Greatest Star Wars moments in the franchise are in the animated, or in the Clone Wars animated show.
could you imagine if the show hinged on the success of this movie?
Wow. Yes. Yes, that would have been. We would never have known what we lost. And the Clone Wars the series then led to Star Wars Rebels. I love Rebels. I'm such a big fan of Rebels, which then led on to Ahsoka, the live action series, and has brought us so much.
Yeah. So, a lot of this pre-production notes I have are kind of just pre-production notes for the show, which is kind of unavoidable since we're talking about the movie having just been a spawn of the show. But originally, Dave Filoni was going to write secondary characters as the main characters because, he was not sure how these mains were going to fit in the pre-established canon. But George Lucas was like, no, I want the show to be about our, known characters.
Didn't know that. So who did he think, Dave Filoni, who did he think was going to be the main character? Was he going to follow more like Rex? I know he's obsessed with Plo Koon, by the way.
Is he really?
Yeah, apparently. So maybe he thought that was going to be the main character. Sorry, Plo Koon is what I meant to say, not Plo Koon. Which is a funny character to be obsessed with. I mean, Plo Koon is cool, but yeah, apparently he even, I think he wore a Plo Koon costume for Halloween one year, or I don't know. Yeah, he's very, very into him.
That's funny. I'd never seen him without his cowboy hat, but
Yeah, I don't think I have either.
so Filoni was developing early concepts and introduced the characters Rada and Zero, for instance, and was trying to tell a story that would not interfere with
I see.
continuity. And then Lucas was basically like, no, Obi-Wan and Anakin should be central characters.
Huh. Yeah, I do vaguely remember an interview where Dave Filoni was saying that he was shocked by the idea that there was this new apprentice. He was like, but that doesn't make sense. It's never mentioned in Revenge of the Sith. How can this be? And George Lucas just told him, yeah, that Anakin had an apprentice. That's just how it is now. He was like, okay. Well, you make canon, you are the canon, so.
Yeah, George Lucas is known for, as long as he owns Star Wars, from back before, even when he wasn't directing the original trilogy sequels, but he was still throwing his weight around a lot with a lot of, a lot of it was, as we mentioned in previous episodes of this podcast, a lot of it was motivated by toy sales. So,
Yeah.
merchandising.
Ewoks, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have I only have two Star Wars figurines at home. One is Ahsoka, and the other is Dr. Aphra, who I absolutely love from the comic. Yeah, from the comics.
Okay, so this is not a cartoon character.
No. Those are my two favorite characters. I think from Star Wars. Dr. Aphra is like Han Solo if Han Solo wasn't a hero deep down. She is more like a more selfish, more anti-hero version of Han Solo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's absolutely great. I highly recommend all the comics where she appears.
So let's get into casting. They had originally thought about bringing back a lot of these principal actors to come back to voice the characters, but I think a lot of the decisions came down to cost, so they actually don't end up asking Hayden Christensen to come back to be Anakin Skywalker or
Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor, yes, thank you.
Yeah, so they got, was it Matt Lanter, I believe, to play
Matt
Anakin,
Lanter, James Arnold Taylor for Obi-Wan.
Okay.
They get where's Padme? Catherine Tabor to be Padme, replacing, apparently actually they replaced Greta Lyle a couple times because she was out of the voices on the 2003 show with Tartakovsky, but I don't know, I guess they couldn't get her from all her I guess late stage Fairly Odd Parents shit, I guess.
Okay, I didn't know that. You know what? I read that when they were auditioning Ashley Eckstein for Ahsoka, that initially they told her that Ahsoka had an Icelandic accent and she had to do an Icelandic accent. And so her initial audition, she came in trying to do like an Icelandic accent. And they were like, oh, but actually, we want you to do it with an Icelandic accent. She was like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
No, it's not working.
Yeah, and you know what? I think she originally auditioned to play Padme, but
Yeah, she did.
they told her she sounded too young or something. And yeah, anyway, when it came to recording, she was apparently very relieved that they dropped the Icelandic accent requirement for her character.
Oh yeah, that would have been hard to do.
Yeah, I
For
can't really
7
imagine
seasons.
it. Yeah.
And now actually Eckstein pretty much known for playing Ahsoka. That's like kind of her big role.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time. Yeah.
And the movie also gets D. Bradley Baker to play all the clones, picking up from Tamora Morrison from the movies. This is also pretty much what he's known for now too, is playing all these various versions of the clone troopers.
Throughout the Clone Wars series too, right?
Yeah, and he gets a lot of work on this show.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah, he's playing every clone. And, Captain Rex and Commander Cody and all that.
They also recast Palpatine for this movie and show they get Ian Abercrombie to play him in this. They also recast Yoda with Tom Kane. They get Kevin Michael Richardson to voice Jabba in this movie, he being a very prolific voice actor.
Okay.
But coming back, we do get I don't know why, I mean, because I don't know why like they didn't bring back Christensen, but they brought back Samuel L. Jackson for this movie.
I would presume he charged a hefty fee.
But he doesn't do the show. He only does this.
Yeah, maybe they couldn't afford him for the actual show.
Well, maybe once they decided that it was going to be a movie that they're releasing, they're like, oh, well, hang on, let's get like a heavy to come back and we can put their name on the poster,
Yeah, and they also, Anthony Daniels does C-3PO, right?
Yeah, well, he does. I mean, he's pretty much in everything that C-3PO does forever. And then you also get Christopher Lee in this movie specifically as Count Dooku.
Gotcha. Yeah, and
But
that was
also
his
not on
last, the last time he played Dooku, I believe.
Yeah, it was. He passes away in 2015, unfortunately. I would have loved to have gotten more Christopher Lee as Dooku specifically, whether it was live action or animation, either way. But yeah, this is his last time.
Yeah, that would have been interesting for the Tales of the Sith, where we get some insight into Dooku's backstory, which actually turns out to be very interesting. Yeah,
I like
And
that
kinda
little
tragic.
mini arc. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
He's one of the more underserved, because I mean I love Christopher Lee. He's one of the best character actors of all time. But Dooku as a character was always, I felt like, a little bit underserved in terms of representation in Star Wars.
Yeah, it's hard. I remember being a kid like 20, and watching Attack of the Clones, and to be honest, I wasn't that into Dooku because I think a lot of us were just so bummed that Darth Maul was gone. He just seemed so cool. And it seemed like Dooku had kind of, he was the replacement villain now that Maul was gone. Yeah, but
he's a lot more like debonair, gentlemanly, like he's not a flashy villain in any sense of the imagination,
Yeah. It's, in a way, it's kind of a shame we didn't see more of like where he had come from, what his deal was at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So they playing Dooku in the show is Corey Burton, who also did the 2003 show. And he also, in this movie, voices Zero the Hutt. And I didn't know this the first time watching this movie, but Zero the Hutt was based on Truman Capote, which now that I see it is so obvious.
I'm gonna give this movie another watch after we finish, because I feel like it's gonna have added layers and elements after everything we're talking about.
Sure. Zero, I really don't like as a character. I never did. It's just now I get what they're going for now that I know what the inspiration of the character was, but it feels a little bit too, I mean, I hate to say cartoony because this is a cartoon, but it doesn't feel within, like, he's so different from Jabba and all the other Hutts that we know. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah. I think I read one of the designers or something saying that, that Zero has like a more symmetrical face, like Jabba has like a drooping nostril, and Zero has like a more symmetrical face because he must have got some work done or something like that. I'm sure it was a tongue-in-cheek comment, but yeah.
The Star Wars version of plastic surgery for giant slug creatures.
I mean, I guess, if they can fly through space, I guess they can do a facelift.
Yeah. I don't know how you lift that face. That is
True.
a tall task.
Yep. Fair.
Before we get into the rest of the post-production stuff, I want to talk a little bit about the animation. And we touched a little bit on it early and how it was kind of it was kind of a hard sell because it wasn't really like anything that had been done before. And George Lucas wanted to make it look unique purposely. He wanted to set it apart from a lot of the other stuff that was being made at the time.
Yeah. The animation that we were kind of familiar with at the time was more like, Pixar and stuff like that, at least in that world of 3D animation. So it's very distinct. Yeah. There's, as we mentioned, the anime influence, and then there's this weird kind of Thunderbirds influence, which kind of is unexpected. Like, who would think of that? But it did create like a very distinctive visual style.
Yeah. I actually have right here that he said specifically he did not want it to look like Pixar.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, he succeeded.
And Beowulf, weirdly, I found that quote. He did. I guess that was a recent movie that came out.
Yeah, I remember watching it. Wasn't Beowulf? Was it rotoscoped or whatever?
It was Robert Zemeckis's. Yeah, it was like I think it was early motion capture.
Right. Okay. Yep. Yeah.
And it did not hold up for a lot of reasons, but I can see why you wouldn't want to look like that either.
Yeah, you know what? I remember that being kind of a guilty pleasure for me, that movie.
I liked it too at the time because that movie came out when I was 14, I want to say, and I was like, "This looks rad," and then I never watched it again, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna let that memory be there, because I know if I watch it again today, I'll have different feelings. But
it's a wise choice.
Yeah. So post-production on this movie, this is the first movie not to be scored by John Williams. I mean, I guess it would have been also a hard sell to get him to come on. I mean, for a whole show, for that matter, I don't think you could get John Williams to do it.
Yeah, it's not really scalable.
No.
Yep.
So they get Kevin Kiner to come on, he having done shows like Star Trek, so a little bit, same ballpark, Stargate, Superboy, CSI, and Leprechaun, which is a classic of mine.
Oh, okay. I actually didn't know that he did the Clone Wars movie because he did a lot after that. He did, I think, like Rebels and a bunch of the TV series.
Yeah, he does Rebels, Bad Batch, Tales, Ahsoka. Yeah, he does a lot.
Yeah.
He's Filoni's kind of first choice for TV scoring.
Gotcha.
And I do see he's also on, as we talked about earlier, he is also on the Mall TV show right now.
All right.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely not no offense to Kevin Kiner, but definitely not a John Williams caliber. But, like, what do you expect? That this...
Yeah, for a TV show, I'm sure it's just not feasible for budgeting reasons. But I think I have a bunch of Kevin Kiner's scores on Spotify.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he does do great stuff on the show, and there is some of that in the movie too.
Yeah, I don't know if he does he originally came up with the Ahsoka theme, but I really like the Ahsoka theme. You know what? I want to highlight a beautiful soundtrack moment. Do you remember? Oh no, that's a spoiler. I don't know if I can say it on this.
A spoiler for what?
For the TV show.
Yeah, I think you're fine.
You know what? I'll just say the name of the track. I think it's called Ahsoka Leaves. And it's so beautiful, the music for that. Yeah, anyone who's watched the show will immediately just feel really poignant. And yeah.
That's one of the best arcs because that's the murder mystery arc, right? Where Ahsoka's framed for murder. Yeah, that's a great...
Exactly, yeah.
That's probably the high point of the series for me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right. So usually on this podcast, we talk about the pre-production stuff and then we kind of get into like the actual review. So we kind of structure as if like we're talking about how this movie is being made currently. Now we're sitting down to watch it, and then we'll go into the release stuff. So we kind of already been talking a little bit about the movie itself. So as far as our review section is concerned, is there anything about this movie that you wanted to talk about?
This movie has so many important moments, but mostly they're introductions. There's the introduction of Ahsoka. This was the first appearance, right, of Asajj Ventress?
She was on the Tartakovsky show, but this is the first
right, I see. Yeah.
canon appearance.
Okay, and I think those are still the highlights. The best scenes are the ones where there's some sort of back and forth and friction between Ahsoka and Anakin. But the plot itself, saving Rodder the Hutt or whatever, I think, to be honest, is it's kind of forgettable. It doesn't feel really high stakes, or even really kind of high personal stakes, even though they are saving a child, which usually, gets you feeling a lot of concern. But it's just it's a little bland, and that makes sense for TV. The first 4 seasons of a season of television, where you're kind of ramping up to bigger conflicts. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the movie.
No, I
It's
agree.
not, it's not Star Wars' highlight. It's enjoyable for what it is, but it's not a highlight of the franchise.
No, I mean, if we were evaluating this as, one episode over here and then a 3-episode arc over here, of a show, then I'd be a lot more forgiving for it. And I didn't see this in the theater. I probably bootlegged it illegally when I was like in high school, a few months after. But I can only imagine that, like, if you're watching this as a movie experience, this being a very underwhelming, not just story to focus on, but like thematically and cinematically, it's just not quite there.
And now that you mention it, the first 20 minutes is actually a pretty good TV episode. If I try to imagine that I was just seeing it by itself, it's pretty satisfying, because it does have that the conflict is, Anakin having to take on an apprentice that he doesn't want to have on. And as you said, at the end of the 20 minutes, there's a resolution for that. So it's a good, that first 20 minutes, not a bad first episode of TV.
Yeah. Although I will say, there was one moment in the first 20 minutes that I was rewatching it for this recording. It focuses on this standoff between these two armies, right? The separatists, and they're on this like bridge or whatever between these two sides of the city. And there's a moment where Anakin and Ahsoka, their strategy for getting behind the shield wall that the separatists, the droids, have, is just sitting in this like like this barrier, like hiding underneath it, and then the droids just kind of pass by them, and then they like sneak away, and you can see their feet underneath it. It's like it's like watching Toy Story 2 or whatever, like when they're crossing the road.
Or like it's like a Scooby Gang trick or something. Yeah, it's very cartoony.
Like, you could not do this in live action. Like, there's no way.
That's true. I never thought about that. But yeah.
I'm just like having... It's weird for me having just watched 6 live action movies, and then to watch this one and be like, oh, how could this? It doesn't gel with how these characters go about like strategy or anything like that. And and I know the droids are stupid. I know they've always been stupid, but like it's a little bit insulting to my intelligence to have that be the way that they win the battle. It's just
clankers. What do they call them? Clankers. Yeah.
That's the new slur for robots that we're going to be adopting in the next few years, and it started with Star Wars.
Was that a Gen Z thing?
I don't know if it's a Gen Z thing, but I've worked at an escape room for many years, including when I was working for WatchMojo, and there's a character we control there that's a robot, and I get called clankers all the time.
Oh, it's giving.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So we might have to censor that in like 20 years when that becomes racist, but
yeah, we may have to.
Yeah. But I agree. You mentioned a little bit about how it's kind of hard for us to empathize with the story of them saving Radabat. And I get that they were going for like this child figure, and they wanted us to project onto this quote unquote cute character. But when you're starting from Jabba the Hutt, a character that is one of the most despicable and vile characters in all of cinema, like, it's hard to care about like his offspring, who's probably going to be shitty too.
Yeah, and to be honest, I feel horrible saying this, but Rodder the Hutt is not that cute.
No.
He's got nothing on Grogu. Like, he looks, it's not his fault, but he looks kind of just like a giant slug.
Wait until the Mandalorian movie comes out and Jeremy Allen White's slug baby is, super cute, cuter than Grogu, and everyone's talking about it. You're gonna look really silly.
Okay, yeah, we'll see what happens.
That's not confirmed. I'm just talking my ass.
Okay.
But yeah, and you talked a little bit about how Ahsoka was originally perceived as this kind of annoying, whiny teen character. And I definitely felt that the first time I watched this movie back in 2008. Like, oh, why she's so snippy, she's so full of herself, she's quipping all the time, like, and she's like this 14-year-old girl, I don't care about her. And I this movie still has that problem. I mean, she definitely gets better in the show, absolutely, but that is kind of a when you want like Anakin to be, you go into the movies wanting Anakin to be like this kind of gung ho Jedi Knight, whatever. It does kind of put a damper on things if you are looking at this movie in a vacuum,
Yeah, fair enough. I think I came to it from a very different place where I was like 20 or wait, how old was I? I was almost in my 20s when the prequel trilogy came out, and I just didn't get I was very attached to, the legacy characters Luke and Han and Leia, and I didn't really get that attached to Anakin. And I also knew that Ahsoka's character arc was going somewhere, that this was kind of just set up because I'd come to the Clone Wars movie like later, like after the TV series had been going for a while. So I didn't find her as grating, but I understand, I wasn't kind of like, don't be obnoxious to Anakin, he's so cool or whatever. But I understand that I came to her in a different context.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest problem they had when they wanted to market this as a movie is that again, I don't even think I knew that there was a show because I was in high school when this came out, and I was not really watching Cartoon Network anymore, so I wasn't really plugged into this being a lead into a TV show. So I think perception had a lot to do with how people responded to this movie, because they, we get the epic conclusion of Star Wars with Revenge of the Sith 3 years earlier. And then we get this kind of like dinky little animated movie. I mean, I can only imagine people who saw it in the theater who didn't know this was part of a TV show, like being like, what the heck is this? Like, this is nothing.
Yeah, especially given the kind of epic and really high stakes nature of the movies, to go to this animated show where the main goal is just to rescue, like, Jabba the Hutt's son in order to, I can't even remember, to foil Dooku's plot to something. Yeah, it's a big jump down.
And for all we knew at the time, this could have been the last Star Wars movie we ever got,
That's also a good point, yeah. But, hats off to Dave Filoni for turning Ahsoka from a character who many fans found just grating to a huge fan favorite character, thanks to the way that she evolved.
Yeah, he was playing the long game, whereas I think
Yeah.
Warner Brothers, which is such a weird thing that they distributed this movie, but we're thinking the short game, and that was a huge mistake.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it was marketed at the time. If it was marketed as, see the feature-length movie that opens a new chapter into a TV series or something. Yeah, that was really kind of the way that it needed to be marketed or approached.
Well, this is a good segue into, because now we're going to pretty much talk about release. And then this movie was released in mid-August, which is the dog days of summer, So a lot of movies that get released even today in that month are basically almost afterthoughts. That whole month, I always call August like a wild card month, because you never know what's going to hit. Maybe one thing is going to hit, or maybe two, but most of them are going to be bombs. So it kind of felt like, I get like the fact that like this was a show probably coming out in September when TV season starts. So it lines up there. But as far as the cinematic experience, it kind of felt like they were just kind of like crapping it out and just putting it out there just to have it out there and not really, caring.
Yeah, fair enough. Maybe they didn't. Yeah. It's really not a bad 4 episodes of TV, even if the animation was only just starting to find its way. But yeah.
Yeah. Again, it all comes down to perception and marketing to this movie. Because again, like all of my criticisms for this movie are more how it's just not a movie, So I almost feel unfair crapping on this movie because it's not a movie. It's a TV show that was just like behind the scenes, just like hammered together to get, so as a show, it's fine. As a movie, it's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I know a lot of the criticism did focus on the animation style. It's amazing to go from, like, you look at the Clone Wars movie and then you look at, say, is it season 7 was the kind of revival series of the Clone Wars?
Yeah.
If you look at the duel between Ahsoka and Darth Maul, that is some of the most beautiful, stunning animation I've ever seen in anything. I don't know if they use some like mocap somehow or something, but it's so lifelike and incredible. They really came a long way while retaining a distinctive style and making it work for them.
Yeah, they actually they did do mocap for that scene. In fact,
Okay.
they capture a lot of the movements of real stunt actors. And yeah, like you said, like I'm so glad that they kept the course. I mean, obviously the animation in the first few seasons is a little bit janky, you know, a little bit stodgy, but like, and now when you look at the animation now, which is pretty similar conceptually, at least like structurally, at least, you know,
Yeah.
it looks so much better. It looks great. So I'm glad that we had to go through this kind of like, you know, this kind of like prototype era of
Teething
the
problems.
animation.
Yeah.
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 All right, so let's get into some box office stuff. This is usually the part where Tanner zones out and I talk about numbers because I love numbers so much. But so this movie opens opening day, gets $6.2 million, which today is 9.5. So not really a huge opening for this movie. It's released alongside Tropic Thunder and Vicky Cristina Barcelona. So two movies that really eclipsed it. I always give Barbenheimer titles for these releases. So if you wanted to do Barbenheimer in '08, you could either do Clone Thunder or, and this is the better one, Vicky Cristina Barcelona.
Oh, that's good. Yep.
Yeah.
Love it. The mashup we didn't know we needed.
Yep. The Woody Allen Star Wars mashup we never wanted or never
Yeah.
get, thankfully. So this movie opens to $14.6 million first weekend, which is $22.2 million today. It opened number 3 behind the first week of Tropic Thunder, obviously, and also The Dark Knight in its 5th week.
Ooh, stiff competition.
Do you remember this summer? Like this summer was crazy.
No, I don't. I remember those movies, but I don't remember what else came out.
So you have like Iron Man starting the summer, you know, MCU launches.
Wow.
You get Dark Knight, obviously. You also get the second Hellboy movie in the summer, which that was not a huge box office earner, but that's a great movie.
Yeah, I love that movie.
You also get Mamma Mia, which was also a huge hit. Definitely different crowd, but you know. You get I can't believe I buried this one. Indiana Jones came out. Crystal Skull.
The King of the Crystal Skull, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Also a big hit in May, I think.
Was it a big hit at the box office?
Yeah. Let me look it up. Star Wars Kingdom. Oh wait, Star Wars Kingdom. Indiana Jones Kingdom. Yeah, that movie made like 3 times over its budget. So
if there was a Star Wars Indiana Jones mashup, it would just be crazy because, like, would Harrison Ford be Indiana Jones or Han Solo? You know,
he's been secretly the same character the whole time.
Yeah, would he just be? Yeah. Oh, maybe it would be a new backstory.
Other movies that came out that summer were WALL-E, Kung Fu Panda. So a big summer for kids animation.
Wow.
Yeah, even like kind of a disappointing movie like Hancock was a big box office earner. It's also a really good summer for comedy. You got Pineapple Express. You've got Step Brothers coming out that summer. You also get Incredible Hulk, another MCU movie coming out that summer. You have Chronicles of Narnia, Sex and the City, which, you know, whatever, but that was a big movie at the time. And the third Mummy movie, which was terrible, but that came out like a couple weeks before this. So
Big franchise, though.
This summer was packed.
Was the Incredible Hulk, is that the first one, or the first Hulk movie or the second Hulk movie? The Incredible Hulk is the first MCU Hulk movie, right?
Yeah, that's the Edward Norton one, whereas the Eric Bana one was in '03, and that was not related.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, that's a crowded summer.
It's crazy that a Star Wars movie came out, and it was barely on the radar.
Yeah, for sure. And when did the TV show start airing episodes? Was it kind of soon after, or was it like a delay?
Let's see. It was October of that year. So a couple months or so.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah, this is the first Star Wars movie, and actually to date the only Star Wars movie not to open number 1 at the box office. Kind of not really surprising knowing the way this was marketed, but
yeah, again, it comes down to whether it should have been a movie or not. The answer is no. Obviously, in our opinions.
Yeah, so if you were at the cinemas that weekend, also in the top 10 were Pineapple Express, The Mummy 3, Mamma Mia, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants 2, Step Brothers, Vicky Cristina Barcelona. So again, like just a lot of notable movies playing right at that time.
Yep.
Domestically, this movie only makes $35.2 million, which today would be only 53.4. And worldwide, it does about the same, 68.3, and just barely cracking $1 million today.
So, but given its budget, does that make it still a bomb, or is it a success?
No. It was only a budget of $8.5 million. So
okay, so still made some money.
Yeah. Budget figures are already kind of nebulous enough as it is, but I only imagine that like this being part of a show, produces a show, only makes that a little bit murkier. So I'm sure, I don't know.
That's a good point. And I also like those budgets tend to be mostly for production, right? They often exclude marketing.
Yeah, usually the rule of thumb is whatever the production budget is, double it, and then you get
Right.
like their net budget for
Gotcha.
marketing as well.
Yep.
But it depends. So critical reactions to this movie, again, not good. I have some general thoughts that people had at the time. I'll start with the positives though. I only have one, and that was that it was harmless. You know,
Ooh, to damn with faint praise, huh?
pretty much, yeah. And I mean, it's not so bad that it was a franchise killer. So it was just kind of there.
Yeah, I mean, it must be the worst reviewed movie of the franchise, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that segue too, because I have a bunch of scores here. It's 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is a franchise low,
It's rough.
and a 41% audience, which is tied for a franchise low. Nick, can you guess what the other
The Last
movie?
Jedi. The Last
Yeah.
Jedi, yeah.
It's tied with The Last Jedi,
Okay.
which is so crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's also got franchise low on Metacritic with a 35, franchise low on IMDb with a 6 out of 10. B- Cinema Score, which is a franchise low. So yeah, like this movie, not reviewed very well.
Here's a good question. In light of all this, do you think that it's skippable for Star Wars fans?
Again, for people like you and me who will consume anything they release, like we want like the full breadth of the saga. I would say, yeah. I mean, I would prefer it if you could watch it like as part of the show and not have to watch it as a movie, but otherwise, no. I mean, if you're just into the movies, and you don't need to know who Ahsoka is, I guess, at least currently.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's hard. I think that if you're at all interested in the TV Star Wars universe, it's maybe arguably not skippable, but put it on in the background because it has so many pivotal introductions.
Well, you gotta get the Ahsoka introduction for sure. So you gotta watch that first episode.
You know what? You should just watch my WatchMojo video.
You don't work for them anymore. You don't have to plug them.
And but it's a really good video. It's called "Who is Ahsoka?" Full recap. "Who is Ahsoka?" Full recap. That's my video. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, it's 4 minutes.
I found it.
Yeah, I think that's my video.
Is that the when people ask you what's your favorite thing you worked on at WatchMojo? Is that usually on there?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yep.
For me, mine is when that Nicolas Cage movie, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, came out. I did a top 10 Nicolas Cage facts.
Cool. That's fun.
That's my favorite video to rewatch it, but it was a bomb.
The video was a bomb. I know.
Yeah, the video was a bomb. Yeah.
You get that perfect intersection of passion and views, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Kind of like this podcast,
Fair enough. So far.
So far, yes. Oh my God, if I don't know if you knew this, but we actually did pitch a podcast when I was working there a few years ago because we didn't have a movie podcast at the time, and we did a proof of concept recording, and they ended up passing on it, and we ended up doing the live show instead.
Yeah, the live show. Yeah.
Which was fun too. But yeah, I bet if they're watching this now, they'd be like, "Damn, Tim would have done this for free, wouldn't he?" Because he's not making money right now. So
you know what? I want to plug one other video I did, if that's all right. I did top 10 badass women travelers in history. That's a good video.
Top 10 badass.
If I do say so myself. Yeah, it's for Ms. Mojo. I did a lot of research, a lot of reading on that. Yeah. Anyway,
that's cool. Oh, that came out only a year ago. Oh, so that's a recent one.
Yeah.
Okay, I must have watched that. I still watch most of our stuff. Our stuff.
Of this, you mean the channel stuff or the stuff that we did?
I still watch the channel.
Do you watch your... okay.
Not as much because I don't have time to watch everything, but
Yeah, fair enough.
I'll put a lot of it on the background. Okay. A little tangent there. So yeah, the negative reviews for this movie, again, they didn't like the animation. They didn't think it looked cinematic enough to go into a movie theater and watch this, They also decried the bad script writing, dialogue. They missed the original cast, and also they thought Ahsoka was annoying. So pretty much all the stuff that we've already mentioned.
I wish I had a hot take, but what can you say?
But again, it's the problem with this movie is viewing it as a movie. There's different expectations we have when we come into different things, So when you put like a Cartoon Network show in the theater and you try to pitch it as a full coherent film when it wasn't produced that way, it doesn't hit the same expectations.
Yeah, I would say that what you just said is also valid of the animation. It's not movie quality or movie level or whatever.
So we usually go into accolades as well in this podcast. Obviously, this did not get any Oscar nominations, but it was. I do like to note the Golden Raspberries. It was nominated for worst prequel, remake, ripoff, or sequel, but it lost to another Lucasfilm movie. Can you guess what that was?
Crystal Skull, King of the Crystal Skull. Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that since the theater in full, and I liked it then. To this day, I've always said I like Crystal Skull, but I've never gone back to it because I'm so afraid.
Just leave it as it is, pristine in your memory.
Yeah.
There's no reason for you to watch, George Lucas nuke the fridge with a more analytical mind.
Not to go too deep, but do you have feelings about that movie? Strong feelings?
I feel I was disappointed. I was so excited to see another Indiana Jones movie, but I also had some misgivings because The Last Crusade is such a perfect send-off. Like, it's such a beautiful send-off with them, riding into the sunset, and you don't know if Indy and his dad are immortal because they drank from the Holy Grail. So it just felt like unnecessary, but I was still excited to see Indy again on screen, and it didn't really hit those expectations. I think I found Sheila LaBeouf annoying. I think that I remember there being like CGI ants that really I found jarring.
Yes.
And I think there was a Tarzan cry.
There was the monkey. They were swinging with the monkeys in the vines.
Yeah. Just stuff that didn't really feel like tonally that it fit into the franchise.
A weird era for Lucasfilm in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Early 2008.
You know what, though? Hats off to Spielberg for defending Lucas about the fridge thing, because I know he admitted, I think, that it was George Lucas's idea, I think. But he also defended him, and, it's good not to badmouth your friends.
Well, people always say the fridge is stupid, but then I'm always like, I always show them falling out of a plane on a raft and running down the mountains.
You know what? Touche. I got nothing to say to that.
So... I mean, I know people have problems with that movie, and I understand that, but that as a particular lightning rod, I
never thought about the roughing. It's a really good point.
Anyway.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, so let's get into the legacy section of this episode for the Clone Wars movie. Again, we kind of already mentioned a lot of this, how this kind of goes on to become something a lot more substantial in terms of not just Star Wars storytelling, but animation gets a lot more acclaim as the show goes on, and then spawns other shows and other shows. But it really does impact the future of Star Wars television for now, but I feel like the movies, it'll happen.
Big time, yeah. I mean, you have, 7 seasons of the Clone Wars. You have, again, we mentioned Star Wars Rebels, one of my favorite parts of Star Wars. Absolutely love Rebels. You have, the Bad Batch. You have the Ahsoka live action series. Super huge turning point in continuing the franchise. And continuing the franchise beyond just the Skywalker saga. There's a lot of episodes of the Clone Wars that focus on Anakin, but there's a lot that explore other characters and other storylines. Yeah. So it really opened it up.
I was talking to my co-host Tanner in the last couple episodes about the show and how it really recontextualizes the way you feel about the clones in particular, because in the movies they get Commander Cody gets like that message like execute Order 66, and from your perspective it just kind of feels like, okay, that's an order, I'll take it. But in the show you learn how they're really like sleeper agents, and they go against like their friends and stuff. It's a really hard decision on a lot of them.
A lot of them become sort of individualized, and then you have this inhibitor chip, and their story becomes quite tragic.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, so when I think of the Clone Wars TV show, I think of, Anakin and Obi-Wan have their cool stuff, and Ahsoka too, obviously, their story arcs, but I do think more of like the clone aspect of it. Because, conceptually, the Clone Wars is a really interesting thing of having like a war being fought on two sides, but puppeteered by the same person, and the people that get caught up in the crossfire. So like in terms of like when Lucas said like he wanted to develop a show that expands on the dynamics of this time in Star Wars history, like it really does succeed at that.
Yeah, it also, because you have the more breathing room in a TV show, you get to kind of explore the moral nuances of that war a little bit more and see things from both sides.
Yeah, this movie definitely not seeming like much at the time, but would be prescient in terms of how Star Wars is shaped going forward. And Dave Filoni, of course, being the shepherd of Star Wars TV for many years to come. He becomes CCO, Chief Creative Officer of Lucasfilm in 2023, and now he's president as of January of this year. So we'll only get more of him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Are we getting an Ahsoka season 2?
I've heard a lot of things. Was that 2023 that came out? So it's been a few years.
I can't remember, but you know what? I'm reading that it is wrapped, so I guess we are.
Great.
Yeah.
I would love that because it's not my favorite of the shows they've made, but I did really enjoy it, and I think that they wrapped up a lot of the Rebel stuff pretty cool. And I would hate, I hate it when they leave a plot thread dangling. Like if they were to leave Ahsoka, spoilers for the show, but leave her where she is,
Yeah.
it would just be awful to me. It'd just be so even if I hated the show, I'd prefer if they wrapped it up, completed it.
And I loved getting to meet like Ezra and Sabine and Ahsoka, of course, in live action. Yeah, that was really exciting. And I think it's a great cast, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
They did a really good job casting those. I mean, Ahsoka was kind of bandied around on the internet for being Rosario Dawson being like the perfect choice.
Yeah,
and it was like the fan casting that came true, because when they eventually had time to actually cast Ahsoka in live action, they're like, yeah. We see it too.
Yeah. And she does a great job of playing a kind of more mature Ahsoka, has been through a lot more than the kind of younger, fiery Ahsoka we meet initially in the Clone Wars.
It's great seeing her arc over I was trying to pitch this to Tanner a couple weeks ago of like he's never going to watch the show. Like I can't get him to commit. And even he actually did watch the movie for this podcast. And he kind of gave me a text of like, what the hell am I watching? Kind of response.
Oh, it was his first time.
This is his first time watching this movie. So, and it's a hard sell to sell the show on top of this, but I think it's definitely worth it if you can commit to it. The show is really good.
Yeah, there are some amazing arcs.
We also like to, on this part of the podcast, talk about how some careers were affected. We mentioned at the top of the show how D. Bradley Baker this becomes this really big big thing that kind of vaults him to the top of like the list of greatest working voice actors, pretty much.
Because he gets to play all the clones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he does such a great job.
Yeah.
Like, he makes them so unique, and like just finding the little bit of the variations in their voices.
Yeah, which is a lot about what Clone Wars is about, isn't it?
Yeah.
About individualizing the clones and making them separate characters. Yeah.
And that could have been easy because he's essentially having to do an impression of Temuera Morrison in a sense. So he's having to adopt this New Zealand accent but also create 30 different voices of the same like base character.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so hats off to him for this.
He's also done a lot of video game work, hasn't he? I guess, was that subsequent to Clone Wars or
I don't know.
Before? I'm reading that he is also voiced characters in like Gears of War, Overwatch. Yeah,
he's done plenty of stuff. He's Ra's al Ghul in Arkham City.
All right.
Yeah. We also like to talk about not just careers that were affected, but where some people go after this. Ian Abercrombie, who voices Palpatine, does do the show as well, but we do unfortunately lose him in 2012, so he ends up getting recast as Tim Curry for the show.
Okay, yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I think by the time they get to in the show the Maul Savage fight with Palpatine, I think by that point it's Curry.
Okay.
And of course, this is also Christopher Lee's last time, as we mentioned before, playing Dooku before he passes away as well. So just want to mention that, All right, Nick, that's the show for the Clone Wars. That's all I have for this.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
But before we go, we like to get into pop culture shoutouts. So is there anything that you've been experiencing or watching lately, or you've liked, or just want to talk about?
I've been watching Slow Horses. I just did a complete rewatch in order to watch the latest season 5, that came out quite a few months ago, I think. I love Slow Horses. It's such a great show. Gary Oldman absolutely kills it. It's like, a role he was born to play as a kind of sardonic and cynical British spy master or agent. He has so many good burns and one-liners. Actually, you know what? I think we at WatchMojo, we actually put together like a short of just his best one-liners from the first couple of seasons. I just got really excited today to read the news that one of the producers of Arcane, which is easily one of my favorite shows of all time, is working on an animated adaptation of The Wheel of Time. Which is one of my top 2 or 3 fantasy series of all time. I mean, I grew up reading Wheel of Time. When I think of being a teenager, one of the first things I think about is Wheel of Time. I was just so obsessed with those books. And we had a live action adaptation on Prime, which many fans found lacking.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited to see what they do with an animated version. And I also think that it might be more sustainable because, I mean, The Wheel of Time is such a huge, long series. It might be more sustainable to actually get to the end of the story if it's through animation and not live action. Yeah. That's
how
what
many
I'm
books?
excited about.
How many books is that anyway?
I think, is it like 15? I think Robert Jordan himself wrote the first, I believe, 13, including the prequel novella New Spring. And then after he passed away, Brandon Sanderson came in to finish the series.
Okay.
And he was going to write, I think, one book, like the last book, but then from memory, I think it got split into 3. Yeah. You know what? Robert Jordan, maybe he wrote the first 11 or something. I can't remember. But yeah, it's a very, very long series.
Yeah. Well, I heard a lot about it in terms of it being one of the biggest, like, undeveloped, fan universes as far as live action is concerned, and how the show was kind of a disappointment because it was the first live action you got, right?
It was, yeah. Generally, people understand that when you are adapting material from a book to a TV show, you need to make a lot of changes. And especially in something as large as Wheel of Time, you need to make cuts. That's how it is. Some things that work on the page do not work on screen. But a lot of the changes we got were more changes in story that made the story poorer, not better. And were not really part of that process of, you have to trim and condense things and tie. You need like this element of pacing and conflict. A lot of what we got didn't seem to serve that purpose. It was just kind of like changes, like fan fiction-y kind of changes. So yeah, I was one of those very disappointed people in the series. I actually only watched the first season and then I was
really
like, I'm out. Yeah, and then I had to reread the books to like restore my memory. Look, I'm not a book puritan by any means, but these books were very, very close to my heart. And yeah.
Well, you just said like you have to make changes, which for some people, if they hear that, they say, no, you can't touch it.
That's true. I should have said like reasonable people understand that you have to make changes, but they have to be changes that are necessary because of the nature of the media, or things that they have to be better. You can't just make changes for the sake of it and for them to be worse than the original story.
Yeah, the thing you're making now has to come first and work as its own thing first of all.
Yes.
Because if it doesn't, then why make it at all?
And also, like, if you're adapting a writer, and Robert Jordan is, I know a lot of people criticize Robert Jordan as like, his books did become like very slow, especially towards the end, and he's very descriptive, which you either like or you don't like. But he is a great writer, and even if he's not a great writer for everyone, trust the writer. If you got to trust the writer when you're doing adaptation, there's a reason that people love them and that they're great. Sometimes in an adaptation, when you're just like, cutting, pasting here and there, like different plot elements, or giving different characters different roles that were occupied by other characters, it's easy to miss the kind of invisible threads that were part of what was holding the story together at maybe not an unconscious level, but maybe not an overt level. And if you move too many things around and mess with too much, the overall kind of story structure, you damage that story structure. You kind of weaken it. Yeah.
And it becomes something that it never was. It no longer resembles the spirit or the thematic linchpin of whatever the adaptation was for.
Exactly. Like I get it. You want to appeal to, when you're making a TV series, you probably you want to get the fans watching. You also want to appeal to a wider audience. That's normal, but you don't want to lose the fans. Like they're
Yeah.
your core. Yeah.
It's a hard balancing act.
Yeah.
Well, I'm always a big proponent of like I hope the animated series goes well, because I'm always a big proponent of like, hey, if this property is not working over here, like if you've run out of like cinematic runway or whatever, or say our TV show or a book or whatever, just change the medium and do it a different thing, because it changes everything.
That's so true. That Star Wars is such a great example of that. We were just talking about the Clone Wars and Star Wars shifting to animation, and while it wasn't an incredibly smooth transition with the movie, but it opened up the franchise to so many more possibilities and so much more longevity.
Yeah, it's a lesson that I think a lot of movie franchises could learn, where they're like, no, we got to save the franchise with this movie. We got to make another Transformers and just
another remake, another sequel.
And no, it's dead. Like, just explore different options, you know, like explore different media. Take a break, you know, like you don't have to
take a break.
You don't have to milk. You don't have to milk it until the cow is dry. You know,
I
like
know.
You can go to a different cow.
Do something else wrong. Come back. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, my pop culture shout out for this one, it has to be, I went to a 40th anniversary screening of Stand By Me here in Portland, Oregon, that is, not Maine. The cast was there, so they brought back Will Wheaton, Jerry O'Connell, and Corey Feldman after the movie wrapped to do like a little panel discussion about it. We got these tickets. In fact, my friend, he's loved this movie, and he wanted us to get tickets a long time ago, and we got tickets like in December, and then there was the news that Rob Reiner had been killed, and we were like, oh man, this is gonna have a totally different vibe to it now. But they were great. Like, it was really cool seeing them. It was really cool seeing the movie on the big screen. You could tell these guys are really familiar with each other, and they're really, good friends. So it was a really great experience.
Yeah, love that movie, but it did traumatize me, the leeches. I had a really big phobia of leeches forever after. Yeah, and I thought about that scene a lot.
Well, that was that really happened to Stephen King, I think. That was pulled from real life for him.
Okay.
When he wrote the story.
No wonder he ended up writing horror. Yeah.
Yeah. They had the option to do like a meet and greet with the cast. It was a little pricey for me. My friend did it because he's bougie. But yeah, and apparently he got to talk to Jerry O'Connell for a little bit, and he said that Jerry O'Connell was very nice.
Nice.
It was my friend's wife's 50th birthday that day, and just happened to be that day they had to go, and she understood. And he had Jerry O'Connell record a little like hey, sorry you had to spare your husband for me today, but happy birthday. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, it was really cool.
Cool.
Okay. So thank you guys so much for listening to this very special episode. I mean, we kind of, in the early stages of this podcast being made, and when we knew Star Wars was going to be our first franchise, we were wondering like, oh, are we going to do Clone Wars movie? Like, does it count? Like, should we just skip it? I championed for it because I feel like there's a lot to talk about in terms of how influential it is. So I'm glad we ended up doing this. But next week we are going back to your mainly scheduled programming. We are going back to the live action. So next week, stay tuned for our Force Awakens chat. TBD on who I'm going to be doing it with, but I think Tanner should be back by then. So look out for that. But Nick, thank you so much for joining me. This has been really a blast. One of the great things about having this podcast that gets me no money is that I can reconnect with, so many people that I met at this, at this job that was so, I don't want to get into the minutia of it, but it was fun. And you meet so many great, fun individuals. So it's been great reconnecting.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And it has been great catching up.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd love to have you back sometime. I can't wait to have others on the show from WatchMojo days. It's going to be a blast.
That's great.
Is there anything you want to plug that you're working on, or anything that you want to talk about? As they do
no, everything I'm working on is in too early days at the moment. Yeah, I'm working on some writing stuff, but it's still early in the works.
Okay, well, you gotta let me know when you're putting stuff out there, because I gotta look into it.
Yep.
All right. Well, if you guys want to get in contact, we do have a email address. You guys can ask us questions. We haven't gotten any emails yet. We've done 6 shows, and we've got no emails back for asking for questions. But I'm still gonna plug it. It's questions@backtothefranchise.com. Don't have an actual website, just the email address. So yeah, please ask questions. We'll do a question portion at the end of this at the end of episodes as we go along, if we get them. But yeah, and if you want to get in contact with me, I'm not really on socials that much. I'm on Letterboxd, so you guys can find me as always at Letterboxd at TGMacman, TGMacman. But yeah, that's about it. Nick, thanks again so much for joining me. This has been great.
No worries. Thank you.
And thank you guys for listening. Until next time, may the Force be with you.